Hey, everybody, it's Scott Gaulden, and I have my co-host Megan Haupert with me. Good evening, Megan.
Hello, Scott.
Welcome. Welcome to our show, From the Ground Up. It's a podcast about autism, faith, and family. And first off, I want to begin by just thanking everybody from some of the feedback that we've gotten recently. Please continue to give us encouragement along the lines that you've been giving us. We really appreciate that. We hope that the show is a blessing to you and your family. And if so, we ask that you continue to share it with others and get the word out there. We're hoping to build an audience of people and to be like I said, just a blessing to those families that are on this path that some of us have walked. Megan, it was Thanksgiving this last week. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great. Very kind of relaxed. I spent some time with the family. My boys got to go deer hunting for Grayson's second time, Stinson's first time.
Wow.
So, yes.
Okay.
I'm very proud of them. They got up at 5 o'clock. It was still dark out. Went and sat in a cold tree stand for about 4.5 hours. And were quiet. I genuinely don't see the joy in it. I don't understand why men do that, but hey.
Did Chad take him out there?
He did. Grayson went with my husband, and then Stinson went with my brother. So they both went, and we have some acreage out and some woods, so they could kind of be in different places, but we had a good time. Stinson was bored out of his mind by 9:30, 10 o'clock. So
I was going to say I would be as well. I don't see how they do it.
I've been one time, and that was when I was dating my husband. And then once we married, I was like, I will never do that again, ever. Sorry. I won you.
Never been a big hunter. I appreciate those guys that enjoy it. But, there's so many other things I'd rather be doing that involve warmth and dryness and lack of having to walk out somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Well, I know here at our house, we really had a great time. Had some of the kids in, and it was really special, and really got a chance to spend some time with some you can't say former friends. If you've got friends, they're friends, but some lifetime friends that we haven't been able to see in a while, and got a chance to get real close with them again. And it was a very special time. When friends are like family, they really are special. And that's the kind of people we got to spend our Thanksgiving with. So
that's awesome. And the friends that you can not talk to for a while and just pick up right where you left off.
We may talk every 3 or 4 months, and it's almost like I'll just tell you the story. It's a person that's been my best friend since 7th grade. We met each other in 7th grade. I was his best man. He was my best man. We were college roommates. We had a lawn mowing business together growing up. We've raised our families. 2 of his sons have worked for me. So, it's like we've been together, but literally we can not talk to each other for a long time and just pick up like we were in the 7th grade again. My wife rolls her eyes when that happens, but it's a lot of fun. So
that's my best friend has been my best friend since kindergarten, and we are the exact same way.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's cool. Well, we're going to have a little bit different concept tonight. Normally spend a little bit of time talking about an autism related topic, like the last couple of times have been about insurance. And hopefully for those of you who have been listening, you might have found a few secret nuggets that you can use to help you with insurance. But Megan and I have just been real passionate about the idea of the faith part of this because, the faith in the family. Of course, anytime you go through a difficult time in life, it can be a real faith challenge. I know people that have struggled with cancer, and I've got a friend that's going through a lung and liver transplant right now, and his faith is being tested. And anytime you're going through difficult times, your faith's going to be tested. And I think you have to recognize that, and you have to prepare for it. You have to live accordingly. You can't pretend like you can close your eyes and everything's going to be okay. And then at the same time, you and I have talked about this, that families with special needs kids are under attack. They have a divorce rate of 80%. And that's just tragic. So tonight we're going to kind of mix those two topics a little bit and focus on those things. And then I'd also like to announce that next podcast, my wife is going to be a special guest. So you'll be able to, if you don't know me and you're literally watching this for the first time, you'll be able to meet the smoking hot trophy wife, Julie Gaulden. Can't stand me to call her that, but I love her to death. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we've had in our relationship, because not every day's perfect in our world either. Tonight, we're going to open up a new topic, and that topic is hope versus optimism. And if you think about the secular world, hope and optimism are almost viewed as the same term. They're very similar. But I believe when you add faith to the mix, hope is way over here and optimism is way over here. And I think we make a mistake in Christianity today of thinking that we're asked to be optimistic, that optimism is kind of a required thing. I think it can be helpful. I think it's not a bad thing, but it's a thing that if you put your faith in optimism, you can be disappointed where if you maintain your hope and keep your faith in hope, and I don't think it'll let you down. So do you want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on that, Megan? What are the ways that you see it?
I would agree with you. I think optimism is more of a thought process. It doesn't really require anything of us. It's just kind of a mindset, right? It's a thought pattern. It's a more passive approach, where hope requires a plan of action. Hope's more of a goal-oriented approach. It's conviction that something's really obtainable or possible through through actions. So it's more of an active approach. And so I think those two things, one speaking about requires actions on our part, that's where that faith piece comes in, when we have to act on our faith in response to that hope that we know about and we know that is in Jesus. And so I think my personal opinion, like I said, I think optimism is more of a mindset, which is not a bad thing to have, right? We want to always be optimistic. We're always
Yes.
focused on the end result with optimism, but hope is really focused more through the process and how we get to that point, and more of a journey.
Yeah, well, I think that it's important to almost reiterate that optimism is focused on the results. We're optimistic that our child is, and when it comes to autism, we're optimistic that our child will develop these habits, patterns, abilities. We have optimism for that. I think hope is the process that we go through. Hope is what sustains us when times are difficult. Hope is what we still have, even when the result aren't what we were optimistic about, right? Hope is that process. Hope is realizing that God is working in this situation and he's glorifying himself. He's creating us in a stronger way. He's making us stronger, more dynamic. He's improving our testimony. He's all of these things when we're in hope, whether or not that gets us the result that we're looking for or not. And I think that's the challenge. And that's regardless. I've got a friend right now that's going through a divorce, and I saw her on Sunday, and she was talking about, believe it or not, she was talking about the same verse that we use, John 9, that she was discussing how God's going to glorify himself through the situation that she's in. She's using that same verse to talk about this difficulty that she's having in her life and how she's in a dark place right now, but she feels like there's going to be something that's going to be good at the end of it. And that's what hope does. Hope keeps us maintains us through those dark places as we go along. What are some ways that you think we can build hope or try to maintain hope and keep it strong?
Absolutely. I think definitely studying the Bible and looking at, what does God talk about in hope? How are we supposed to physically respond? How are our actions supposed to reflect that hope that we have in him, and that hope that he is, with Jesus dying on the cross for our sins and providing that salvation for us? How do we respond to that? How do we react in that? I think it was in Hebrews 16 or Hebrews 6:19 is where it talks about hope is an anchor for the soul. And if we have hope and we have that foundation of where we're going in our life, whether it be through a journey of a diagnosis of autism, whether it be through a cancer diagnosis, whether it be through a divorce, maybe it's through some personal challenges, through mental health and those sort of things, the hope of knowing that we're going to get there, having a plan, having responses and reactions, responding with actions because of the hope that we know that Jesus has given us. I can be optimistic that the Colts are going to win the Super Bowl this year, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? So if I had
That's the
hope,
difference between a realist and an optimist, okay? Realistically, it's probably not going to happen.
but having that optimism is a good mindset to have, but we have to follow it up with action. And that's where that hope meets a response to what Jesus has done for us.
I was thinking about when I was going through some of the struggles in my thinking, I came across the scripture that Paul talks about God making it clear that his grace was sufficient for him. When Paul's asking for God to cure him of this thorn in his side. And God just simply says, my grace is sufficient. And I think that sometimes we don't appreciate what this amazing gift of salvation is and what this amazing gift of grace that God gives to us. It says, this gift that I'm giving is sufficient. Anything God gives me beyond that is just icing on the cake. But I have to place that gift from him as being so critical in my life that everything else just kind of fades off in the background. And if you think about it, it's huge. It's huge. The entire, when God says, like, the gospel's going to be enough, the gospel is, I gave my son so that his blood would wash away all your sins. I want you to be with me. I want you to be I want to be reconciled with you. Can you imagine anything beyond that needs to be done? That's what gave me hope, is once I began to put all that together and I recognized that right there is going to be enough, then anything else that God put on top of that was just icing on the cake. And that helped me to kind of build my hope and maintain my hope through some dark times.
Scott, I have a question regarding kind of your hope. We talk about, and I think about loved ones that have passed and knowing that there's that level of salvation that they had and that hope and knowing that we're going to see them one day again and be reunited. Does that thought process ever play into you as Colby's dad and the hope of maybe seeing Colby? I don't want to say that he is sick or ill or anything like that, but just seeing him in a different light when heaven has come and we're there, and just, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't really know what I'm trying to ask, but
I think the idea that at 21, Megan, I think we've come to a realization that Colby's probably developed a lot of what he's going to be able to develop.
mm-hmm.
Let's just be honest. Okay. And quite frankly, Colby still has a lot of deficit. He's come a long way, but he still has a lot of deficits. And what frustrates me in that is that there's so many of these things that he does that are truly amazing that I just want to know, what did you do? How did you put all that together? How are you figuring all that out? That there's this part of me that just does hope that there's a day in heaven when I can have some of those questions answered, where I can have that relationship that I want to have with a son, that's made whole. And yeah, that plays into my mind quite a bit, that, and Julie, especially, she just talks about, well, I'll have to ask him in heaven. I'll have to ask him in heaven.
I know there's going to be a day where it's like, you guys, we got to sit down and we got to talk. Dad, you did this. It drove me nuts. Yeah. I just not like it just, but I think that's something a lot of our listeners and parents may struggle with, is just, what's that going to be like? And how do I process that without feeling maybe a level of guilt and having that hope in that? And it's okay to think that, and it's okay to have those thoughts and those feelings and think about those things and how that's going to look when we get to heaven. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, and I don't want to go down too big of a road here, but as a parent with a special needs child, I've told people I've had some anger with God. I went through a period where I was pretty angry and didn't like what he was doing. It felt like life was unfair and it shouldn't be this way. And it took me a while to get through that. And I guess maybe the other thing I want to encourage people that are in that state is there's a way out of it. You don't have to stay there. You may be there for a season. You may be in a dark place for a season. Okay. Can't change that. And you can't change it's hard to change your emotions. Emotions are real. They're back there. And you don't just wake up one day going, okay, I'm going to be optimistic now. But again, I think this may be the difference between hope and optimism is you may not all of a sudden be optimistic, but you may be able to plant some seeds of hope every day that you wake up, spend a little time in prayer, spend a little time in the Word, and spend a little time thankful for what God's done for you up to this point. Because if he's done anything at all for you up to this point, let's assume that God's grace is sufficient. You can see that he's actually made a way for you out of this and that you've got something to be thankful for. And I guess the fourth thing, this time of year we have to talk about it, is you got to develop a sense of gratitude for everything that happens. My wife read an interesting article one time, and it changed my mind. Is the part of your brain that has anxiety and worry is the same part of your brain where gratitude is located. And when you start developing thoughts of gratitude, your brain can't worry or have anxiety at the same time it has gratitude. Your brain's not capable of processing both of those things. So if you fill your mind with gratitude, it will drive worry and anxiety literally out of the thinking of your brain. So I remember growing up as a kid, the hymn, Count Your Blessings. Maybe sit down and write down, hey, this is the way I've been blessed, and I've got to be thankful every day for this. And as you build that gratitude, you're going to take some of that negative thinking out, and maybe that'll help fill you up with hope.
Well, and if I can just offer a suggestion or recommendation, one of the things I do every morning is I have a prayer journal. And the first thing I do is, and it's kind of, I bought it on Etsy if anybody wants to go find a free plug there for everybody selling prayer journals on Etsy.
I use it on the yellow notepad in my iPad, my iPhone, okay? So doesn't have to be fancy and pretty, okay?
No. But the first part is, what am I thankful for? And when you wake up in the morning and you sit down and the first thing your brain is trained to think about, what am I thankful for? It really makes everything else about what else do I need or what other things do I need to ask for, kind of puts them in perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't really need this, it would be nice, but this isn't a must. And it really helps kind of navigate your thought process and your prayers to other people too, when you can really look at what you've been blessed with. It just sets the mindset for the whole day. I mean, the days I choose to sleep in, I'm not disciplined enough to get up. Like I know, and it impacts my whole day. So taking 5 or 10 minutes and just writing the 5 things that you're thankful for that minute and that moment, I think can definitely be a mindset and changing that as well.
Well, my hope is that your hope will grow. And hopefully that's going to help everybody here. And then we wanted to talk a little bit tonight as well on the family side of things. We've had these discussions, Megan, that men and women approach, or let's say moms and dads approach autism from very different viewpoints. And I'm not even going to say autism. I'm just going to talk about challenges with children even, okay? Or just any special needs or any problem that a child's having. The dad's going to have potentially a very different approach than the mom has. And I'm not here to advocate that one is right and one is wrong. That's the big thing. Too many times in our society, we're trying to say, well, that's wrong. No, look, these are our responses. God made us as 2 different beings with very different views of the world. And it's a blessing to our children, I believe, when they have both sets of parents, because they do get two very different viewpoints. On the positive side, let's say, moms are much more nurturing than dads. They're the ones that when the kids are having a tough time, they're going to scoop them up. But it's been proven by psychologists that dads are what's going to cause the child to be confident to take risks. And without a dad there encouraging you to take risks, a lot of times the child will hold back and not take the risk that they really need to be able to take in the world that's out there. So we need both sex roles in our lives to kind of help shape us. That being said, when dads deal with grief, and I'm just going to say grief in general, because we talked last week about there's the grief process through this. Dads are going to approach grief completely different than moms do. And because of that, you can have tension because the wife looks over at the husband and goes, why aren't you feeling the same things I'm feeling? There must be something wrong with you because you're not feeling it like I am. Or the husband looks at the wife and goes, why aren't you thinking these things in the way I'm thinking them? And that tension it builds up. And so what we want to try to do is to point these differences out so that when you look across at your spouse, you go, he's probably thinking just about the same thing every other man's thinking. Or you can look over and say, you know what? She's probably doing the same thing every other mom out there is doing. And just learn to accept that in our partners out there. Would that be a fair statement?
I would agree. Looking at those things as gender specific things, not my husband or my wife, but
men do tend to compartmentalize a lot of stuff. And that's kind of how we get through things. And women, everything's connected. It's all one thought at the same time. So I remember a radio talk show host saying, if a woman spent 3 minutes inside a man's mind, she couldn't understand how he would be so incredibly boring because there's so few thoughts to go through. And if a man spent 3 minutes inside a woman's brain, he'd want to blow his brains out because there's just like, I can't handle all the activity. Well, let's talk about how that plays out in the real world. And Megan, one of the first things that we talked about is, and this goes to the grief process, dads have a real problem with acceptance. They go through there's that denial in the grief process. Dads tend to be the ones that want to deny and basically say, no, I don't think that's the diagnosis, or maybe we just need to discipline them a little bit better, or we don't necessarily need to go to all of this, through all of these steps, or if we just treat them like we treated the other kids, they'll eventually be like that. Have you seen that in your practice? And maybe what does that look like?
Yes. And I commend the dads because it's definitely processing through a lot of information and understanding. And dads always want to know the whys. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with dads and just they're coming at me with theories and thoughts of vaccines or this or that or whatnot. And this caused it. And I gently kind of tell them at this point, we don't know the why. We don't know why this happened, what caused this. But what I do know is this is how we can move forward and help make your child a more efficient and more productive child of who they are and build their skill sets and help them fit into the world and help to learn and navigate the world around them. But a lot of times I do have, being a behavior analyst, I do have a lot of the conversations about the discipline piece of it and helping dads understand, well, I understand as a dad, this is your approach and this is why, but can I help you understand why that might not be effective for this child? And I think, and I've always had dads that have been super receptive to what I'm saying. And
there's a little tomboy in Megan.
yes,
There really is.
yes.
Maybe
Like,
a lot of tomboy.
I can talk, but I've been able, which I think it's been is a gift God's given me to be able to connect to dads because I can have connect with moms too, but I can have those like tough conversations, bring up football, and then we start to talk about your kid's diagnosis, and we start to talk about. So I can kind of buy into that trust factor, right? Of I'm here to help you and your whole family. A lot of the times I'll hear from moms that maybe dads just they leave, and not like they work more. They are out running errands more. They're going to the gym, hanging out with their friends more, those sort of things, because it's really hard for them to be at home around that, especially in those early days. And I understand everybody processes things differently through grief. And so just kind of dads will start to maybe blame themselves a little bit of what could I have done differently, that sort of thing. And then we talked about the whole financial piece of it that comes to the treatment of it being very expensive or having to find a job that has benefits that will be able to compensate for that treatment expense. And so dad's kind of having that feeling of, am I doing enough? And I'm not doing enough. Whereas mom sees it as, well, he's just out, he's leaving, he's not helping me. And dad's trying to do everything he can that he feels is in his control to help the situation. And for him, that may be working more for more financial gain. What do you think, Scott?
Well, from a personal standpoint, as a business owner, entrepreneur, and kind of a sales background, when Colby was diagnosed, I immediately went into provider mode. That was my role. And my job was to generate as much money as I possibly could through either my own personal sales or through the sales through my business to be able to generate as much funds as possible to provide for treatments. And quite frankly, I fell short. I fell short of where I wanted to be. I think I might have mentioned to you in some of the pre-show, Megan, it was so disappointing to think I'm doing all this. And then there's always like this Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur who has a child that's diagnosed with autism and was able to provide all of these wonderful, just amazing things. He's sitting on a couple of hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and it's no problem for him to peel off a couple of million to do something extraordinary for his child. And I'm sitting here going, I got 2 kids in private school and a son that I'm trying to buy as much therapy for. And just feel like every time everything I did was just short of what that guy was doing. And if I could encourage the dads out there right now is you're probably going to feel that way. I can't keep you from feeling that way, but try to keep it in perspective. And literally for probably about 7-8 years, I worked 6 days a week. I literally worked 6 days a week because I couldn't let a potential economic opportunity slip through my fingers that would put food on the table or therapy or Colby in some type of therapy. And I worked a lot of hours, but at the same time, I can also admit that there were times where I was kind of uncomfortable at home. It's like, I don't know what to do there. I'm not really sure what I can do and what I can, I don't know that I provide much value there. At least over here, I provide some value. So for you guys that are out there, or for moms that are looking at their husbands and going, why is he doing this? He's probably going through some emotions. And we've talked about this is you'll ask him, what is he thinking? He doesn't want to share with you what he's thinking. You don't want to know what he's thinking. Because if he ever really told you, it would be scary. Because there's just a lot of emotion, a lot of times that as us guys kind of keep in. But just realize he's probably just trying to figure out how he can do what he can do to do what's best for the family, and encourage him for that piece. One of the other things we talked about, Megan, is as a dad with an autistic child, sometimes it's hard to bond with that child. And have you seen that as well? Is the dad just, moms are connected. Dads, it takes a while.
It does. And helping, I think some of the ways that dads can kind of help facilitate that bond. One thing I think is really important is for dads some action items I wanted to kind of share for dads to help maybe build that relationship with their child is become involved in your child's therapy or treatment. That doesn't mean you have to take them every appointment. Maybe make an attempt to go one time per month if they're in speech or OT to just see what they're doing. And then also, if your child's in ABA, attend those parent trainings. I know you may not be able to go to every single one, but attend one, because the more and more your therapist gets to know you as dad and what your goals are for your child, they can help give you ideas and ways to facilitate a relationship with your child. Ask to be included in some of that communication. If there's emails going back and forth, hey, can you just add me to that email so I can see what's going on? There's so many things from a therapy standpoint that I've done with kiddos that have helped facilitate relationships with the parents and with the dads particularly. If we're working on some gross motor skills and some hand-eye coordination and things like that, guess what? You want to throw a football with your kid? We'll work on it in therapy. We want to kick a soccer ball around. You want to be able to go on bike rides as a family? We can tie those things into treatment and into therapy. PT can do those things. Occupational therapy. Making your therapist aware of what you see for goals for your child can really help facilitate that. Scott, what are some things? I know you and Colby have your haircut with JP that you guys do. What are some other things that you guys had, how you facilitated that with Colby?
We do a lot of Legos, and there's just a lot of like routines that we do on a real regular basis. I try to, when Colby was little, he was not easy to take to the store. It would take both Julie and I together to go to the store together with Colby. One would be shopping and the other would be keeping Colby from running down the aisles. So that was challenging, but I will say this, the time that we spent together doing those things helped us be together as husband and wife. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is do the mundane, ridiculous things together, because that's keeping your time together important. You can't, everybody talks about date night. If we just do a date night once a week or every other week, life's going to be magically better. I don't believe that you can substitute quality time for quantity time. Sometimes quantity time is just being together in the car going somewhere, or walking the aisles of the store together. Just spending that time together helps to keep you together, and you have to invest that time together. But when we're doing those things together, we would go to the park. We spent a lot of time on playground equipment, just helping Colby doing motor planning things, climbing things. He had real problems with motor planning when he was little. And as far as like going to the therapy sessions, I did try to be in several of the therapy sessions on a regular basis, or one day I might go pick him up from therapy, and I was pretty much worthless. They would come out and tell me, "Oh, you had a good day today." Oh, great. That's okay. Well, I used to
define a good day. Tell me what that looks like.
Well, I used to joke with my wife. I said, "Have you ever had a therapist come out and say, 'Boy, you just had a horrible day today. He was a mess.'" Maybe that happens, but it was always, "Oh, he had a good day today." Okay, great. Great. The other thing I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, it maybe goes backwards a little bit, Megan, but I see sometimes that moms, because they bond differently with their children, can kind of resent dads because they don't bond that same way. And I wanted to address that for just a second. Moms, that child's been in your body for 9 months before it's even been born. Your whole body is bathed in hormones that you will be with you for the rest of your life. It literally changes the way your brain operates. You have oxytocin that's running through your body, and it's telling you whoever is next to you is something that's important to you. The oxytocin is a very powerful hormone. None of that happens in a man's life. And even for a typical child, and I'm not the only dad that feels this way. So there's a lot of dads that are there. It's like, when they're a little baby, I just don't got much. But over time, by the time they're 3 or 4, it's like, okay, I think I might be able to accept this child as mine. It's taken me a while. And by the time they're 7 or 8 and you go out and do things with them, it takes men longer time to bond with children inherently. And please don't look at your husband and go, well, he's not doing what I think he should be doing because he's not doing it the way I would do it. He's doing it differently. And just encourage him to spend time with your child, even if he's not very good at it. Just say, you know what? I know it's hard for you, but I appreciate you doing that. God, you don't know what you'd do to your man just to give him a little encouragement and say, I just so appreciate, if you'd spend 30 minutes with him, I would just so appreciate, just spend a little time. Let me go. If you could take over for just a little while, it would mean so much to me. If you married the right man, he at least wants to make you happy. Okay. He really will. If you put the dots real close together, we can connect them. Okay. Okay. We can connect them. So just let us know what it takes to make you happy, and we will try to do that. But I just want to make sure that you're aware that he's going to be on a different path as far as bonding goes. And because the child has special needs, it will probably take him even longer than it would be if it was a typical child. So, and all the while there's a difficult situation going on. And the last thing that I just want to encourage both husbands and wives, moms and dads, is just to recognize that you're a little bit under attack right now. If you're going through this, you're under attack, and you've got to consciously be aware that you've got to be working to try to keep your relationship strong. Because if you don't, it's too easy for it to just slowly dissolve into nothing. And take some time to invest in each other and spend that time together and try to your best to stay close. And next week, we're going to talk about how women see things completely different than men. So if you're a guy that's listening to this, make sure you tune in next week, because it'll maybe give you a little bit more insight into some of the things that your wife's dealing with. Because, you know, if I learned anything is I'm not nearly as supportive as I should have been. And looking back, I wish I'd have done things differently. I hope you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Well, and with that, anything else we want to talk about tonight?
I think we just want to encourage spouses to extend that grace-filled hand to each other, and understand that the other one spouse is not trying to intentionally jab or be ugly or things like that. Just having that open communication. And I know women, we are terrible at it when it comes to communicating. We expect men to read our minds. We just cross our arms, and you should know why, right?
And I say, how are we supposed to know what you're thinking when you don't even know what you're thinking? Okay. Please.
And you just want us to tell you, right? You just want us to tell you what we're thinking or what we need. Just
God, wouldn't that be easy? Yeah.
That's such a novel concept. Goodness. So I think this week, what we want to just challenge our listeners to do, as if our dad's listening, make it a point to take one of those action items of becoming involved in your child's therapy, maybe attending a session, asking to be included in that communication, and ask your child's therapist questions. Ask them, how can I do this at home? Or I would like for him to do this. What can I do? Because I promise you that therapist is more than willing and happy to share some recommendations for you. So I hope this episode has been a blessing to you guys. I hope that you are able to take something away and share with others. As we kind of do each of our closing episodes, just our call to actions, we would love for you guys to, if you like this episode, definitely click the like button below, subscribe so that other people are able to find us. We're also now on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, so you can listen to us and not have to see our ugly mugs as well. And you can find us on social media at Autism Faith Family. on Instagram and Facebook. I know I also have my website, haupertconsultingllc, that you can go to if you're recently diagnosed and need some help navigating those first steps through the diagnosis process. Even if you've got a child that you're kind of navigating some challenging behaviors with, I'd be happy to chat with you and talk with you through that as well. And I know, Scott, you love to share the Hills and the special needs ministry that they have there. So I will let you talk a little bit about that.
If you're looking for a church home or there's any spiritual need that we can help you with, the Hills has 3 campuses in Tarrant County, 1 in Keller, 1 in North Richland Hills, and 1 in West Fort Worth. All 3 campuses have a special needs minister and a specific special needs ministry to help you navigate the church experience with your child. We have respite nights. The big thing I want to announce is in the first quarter of 2024, Julie and I will be teaching a Prepare and Enrich Your Marriage class at the Keller campus. That will be a class designed it's a standard marriage enrichment class, but we're going to be doing it just with parents of special needs kids. That'll be part of the class. And during that time, we'll be able to provide childcare for your special needs child along with your other children. So, no reason why you can't show up. It's an 8-week program, I believe, and it's probably, the sessions are between an hour and a half and 2 hours. They'll probably start about 6 o'clock, and we'll have everybody out of there by about 7:45, 8 o'clock. And there's 8 different topics that we work on in the marriage. And you get a chance to see how other marriages work. You get a chance to kind of analyze your marriage. What are some of the strengths and weaknesses you have? And if you're in there with people that are on the same path that you're on, you get to share some ideas about how you can be better husbands and wives, and just to be very encouraging along those lines. So if you would like to take that in, it's not necessarily a class for your marriage that's falling apart. If it is, certainly do that. But maybe you have a strong marriage and you just want to continue to work on those skills. It's designed for wherever your marriage is. It's designed to be able to help you. So if you want to contact me, I'll be happy to help you there. I'll be able to direct you in the right direction on that.
Scott, do you know what day of the week those are going to be on yet? Has that been decided?
It's probably going to be a Tuesday night. I think that's what we're looking at, is a Tuesday night. I just don't have a start date yet. Part of what we're trying to do is try to gauge what the interest looks like. As soon as we get enough people signed up, we'll be ready to set a date for it. So if you are interested, please contact me. We'd be happy to have you as part of that.
Be awesome.
Please please share, please stay encouraged. One final thing is, if we could pray for you, or if you've got just a question, please contact us. We'd love to just share that part of our lives with you, and if there's something we can do there.
There's a topic you'd love for us to chat about, we'd love to talk. So we would love to talk about the topic.
Have a pleasant tomorrow. Hope everything goes well for you.
Thanks,
Take care.
Guys.